I'm a Pirates fan since 1979.
Since I was about 8 years old.
I've loved him ever since I was a little kid.
Since I was 6 years old.
He was about 4 years old.
20 years.
25 years.
21 years.
36 years.
Since about 10, when I was 10.
Since 98 when they came.
We got 4 generations of Cubs fans.
I actually went to 94 games last year.
I'm going to be with this team till I die.
I was born a Cards fan.
I've been a Twins fan forever.
The game was on in the hospital room, actually.
This is beyond loyalty. This is beyond baseball.
Pitch to him from Palmer, and there's the ball hit very deep to right field. Going back for it is Frank Robinson. He's at the wall. He can't get it. It's gone for a home run. Bobby Clemente continues to totally annihilate Baltimore.
There are two kinds of people in this world. Those who love Old Bay, and those who've never tried it. Because once you taste this Chesapeake Bay seasoning, you'll immediately be turned into a canvert. Old Bay goes great on seafood, chicken, corn on the cob, french fries, pretty much anything. Join the Legion of Canverts in America. Pick up a can today. And before you know it, this could be you. Old Bay, the can that connects us.
I'm not adequate, but they just get blocked out sometimes. It's the toughest, really, call for them to make. There's one hit for center. Center fielder back. Ball going. It's way in the seats. Way up into center field, about 8 or 10 rows. Parker has made it a brand new game on one blast there. You talk about hitting the ball downtown. That might have been out to the NASA Space Center, Harry. He really jacked one, didn't he? Ball outside. Here's the one guy who can make that one look like a bunt. He's done it twice on this trip. But that wasn't exactly just over the fence. There's a drive. Pretty good. Way out in the left center. Going. Get out of here. You betcha. Hey, Hat, give me 5. Now all of a sudden it's 2-1. Bombs away in Houston. Holy Toledo. Put on a show, Buccos. Put on a show. Don't...
The next 2-2. Davis to left and will hit. Oh my! It's gone! Santa Maria!
From high atop the Robinson Gearing Studio Complex and straight out of God's country, Pawleys Island, South Carolina, the Let's Talk Baseball Podcast Network proudly presents Backwards K-Pod. And now, here's the host of the show, Jake Robinson.
I never move in slow-mo. Welcome to my dojo. This other pods is so-so. I'm chill like fro-yo. Focus like a GoPro. Ripping up this promo. Check out the scoreboard. First I'm throwing no. No, it's going. Yo, it's gone. Your horn just stopped. Cause Jake got strong and mighty. Undefeated, I mean it. Pull up the pods, cool it down, then read it. Written, produced, directed, and mixed. Dog on your lips and Ozzie Smith backflips. Pick a tip, any tip. Get onto it. I got ridiculous pods without forcing it. You sit at home crying like a girl while I spread the gospel around the world. Yo, the pods are written behind tracks that makes it smooth, but they groove it to make ears wanna listen. A little cut and a rhythm to back it up. Another show to my name, now watch me stack them up. You think another way rap act, but this ain't no act jack. My hobbies are rhymes, some people trying to be black, but that about time I come out, call the show BKP, now let me turn it out. Yo, name Jake the Snake, born in 71. Jake, you know what time it is, I'm packing them guns. Your experience, I've been a witness to glory, and that's why I collect ball players and their stories. You heard? So, once again, back is the incredible, the pod animal, Jake the Snake Robinson from the Let's Talk Baseball Podcast Network. I'm coming out of Pawleys Island, South Carolina. Half man, half podcast machine, back in the Captain Kirk chair. Shields down, both times up. Prepare to engage on this week's digital audio program that I call Backwards K-Pod, where we collect ball players and their stories. What's cracking, C-Meds? What's good? Welcome back into the dojo, chapter 141, in our never-ending historical and biographical account of the moments, players, characters, and pop culture references that have been woven and stitched into the fabric of baseball. The grassroots baseball pod spanning the globe. Backwards Cape Pod, baby. I'm Jake Robinson. I got your hookup. Holler if you hear me. And it feels good to be back, opining the seams to the congregation, preaching the gospel of baseball to the world. I truly feel like I'm doing what I was always born to do, but I'm nothing without my core audience, and I'm grateful to anyone who takes time out of your 24-hour day to share the stories of baseball with me. I will never charge you nerds for the baseball content here at Backwards K-Pod. No Patreon, no Twitch, no pay-to-play subscriptions. All that I ask is if you enjoy the content, please rate and review me as you see fit. Pound that subscribe link and share with your Seamhead buddies. And with that being said, let's get right after it this week as this runaway train rolls on with a brand new baseball adventure. And we got more ground to cover this week than Clemente in right field at Forbes Field. I have my sidekick, the fiendishly Polonius feline Gunnar Robinson, in the dojo with me today, chewing on them catnip gummies, climbing into the conductor's chair, ready to bend baseball, space, and time, and get us on our way to this week's topic. If I can get all of you stragglers here at Terrapin Station to kiss and hug your loved ones goodbye, climb aboard our BKP Time Travel Steam Diesel, as we'll be headed out to Pittsburgh this week. And as I look to the west of Terrapin, I can see down the left field line to home plate in our beautifully manicured Jewel Box Stadium. The pitcher has completed his warm-ups. The catcher has gone down to second. The infield is throwing that ball around the diamond. And there it is. The umpire has called play ball. And that's my cue, as usual, to load her up and depart. I'm calling all aboard. As I will have Gunnar set our time and destination this week for July 16th, 1970, for the opening of Three Rivers Stadium in Pittsburgh. As this week I'm going to do a deep autopsy on the history of baseball in the Steel City. So, hurry, step right up. Get in where you've been and kick off your shoes. Open your kimonos, make yourself comfortable. As I've had this topic circled on the calendar for a few months now, Gunnar picks up the necessary quantum speeds needed to hit 6.0 on our RF spectrum analyzer, creating these anomalic traversable wormholes to bend baseball space and time, tipping the celestial scales to our will. And let me start off by saying, in the almost 3 years of BKP, I've done numerous stories about baseball in the Burgh. First of all, I lived there for a couple years. It's a great place. Some of my best friends in life are from there. I've always had a fascination with them. I had this love-hate relationship with Pittsburgh, being from Baltimore. But as far as the Pirates, and they beat my Orioles twice in the World Series, I've always kind of followed them. I've always had an affinity for them. So I've done bios on guys like Honus Wagner and Doc Ellis. I've touched on the Negro League's Pittsburgh tradition with stories about Josh Gibson, Satchel Paige, Cool Papa Bell. And I've covered Forbes Field and the Trent Trials of 1985. Hell, the first show I did was on the great one, Roberto Clemente. And all of those shows can be found in my wide-ranging vault of archive shows. You can check those out on any platform you use to consume BKB, or you can check out my website, diamondsnakejake.podbean.com. So, I'm just keeping it transparent. I'm not going to go real deep on those topics that I've already covered, as my emphasis this week will be to focus on the early history of baseball in the city. And then I'm going to touch on two of the biggest Negro League franchises in the history of the game, and two baseball stadiums that followed Forbes Field, one that preceded it, Three River Stadium, and beautiful PNC Park that the Buccos call home today. And even though Pittsburgh has always been one of the smallest cities to host a major league team, it is, and I say this all the time, it's a sleeping giant of a baseball town that has a long and colorful history with superb record achievement. Several times during the 20th century, the Pirates had some of the most dominant teams and players in the National League, and the city was home to two of the most fabled Negro League teams, the Pittsburgh Crawfords and the Homestead Grays. At one time or another, some of the game's biggest legends represented the Burgh on the ball fields. Honus Wagner, Jack Chesbro, Pie Trainer, Kiki Kyler, Paul Wainer and his brother Lloyd, Josh Gibson, Satchel Paige, Judy Johnson, Cool Papa Bell, Oscar Charleston, Archie Vaughn, Ralph Kiner, Bill Mazeroski, Willie Stargell, Roberto Clemente, Barry Bonds, Andrew McCutcheon, and Paul Skeens, just to name a few. The lineage is a who's who account of the American pastime from its infancy to the modern game of today. And despite its small market size, Pittsburgh was ripe for the game in the late 19th century. The region's natural resources and new technologies, they propelled Pittsburgh to become the mecca of the nation's young steel industry, and the small city grew dramatically with workers in search of jobs. Blacks were migrating in record numbers from the south to the abolition-friendly Pennsylvania in search of factory jobs. Irish, Poles, Germans, and other Eastern Europeans flocked to the city on a wave of high economic hopes. Soon after, the mills in the city began forming baseball teams to help foster this morale among their workers. And for most people, the game was purely recreation and a way to blow off steam after a rough day at the mill. But for local talented athletes like Honus Wagner and Josh Gibson, baseball became a vehicle to economic empowerment and a better life outside of these mills. And Pittsburgh officially becomes a big league city in 1882. When a local team called the Alleghenies joined 5 other teams to form the American Association. Now, this version of the Alleghenies was actually the second attempt to establish a team in the Burgh. A previous team called the Alleghenies as well was the city's first pro baseball team, and they played at Union Park in 1876. And despite gaining membership in the International League in 1877, the team folded in 1878, unable to compete with the strong local independent squads like the East Liberty Stars or the Olympics, who had a stronger infrastructure and were well established in the Pittsburgh neighborhoods and workplaces. The second Alleghenies team, it comprised of the Burgh's best players, and they found they could compete at the highest level. And in 1887, the team transferred to the National League, where, despite its minuscule market size, it has remained ever since. In 1891, after being accused of poaching rival teams for better players, in particular the Philadelphia Athletics, the team is referred to as the Pirates, and the much bolder nickname stuck. The Pirates would make significant gains in the 1890s when legendary manager Cornelius McGillicuddy, Connie Mack, and baseball's first superstar, Honus Wagner, joined the club from the Louisville Colonels. In 1901, with new owner Barney Dreyfus in control of the club, the Pirates live up to their moniker, and like true Buccaneers, they plunder the opposition and hoist the championship pennant 3 years in a row. In 1902, the Buccos win the pennant by 27.5 games, which is still a Major League record. In 1903, the Pirates are the National League representative in the very first World Series in the modern era, losing to the Boston Pilgrims. The Pirates win the crown in 1909 against the Detroit Tigers in the team's inaugural season at Forbes Field, which was a monument to the latest advancements in steel and concrete stadium construction. And again, I cover Forbes Field in great detail. The story of the construction and the history of this baseball cathedral, and you can find that in the archives. It was truly on the cutting edge of a technological modern-day marvel in 1909. And speaking of technological advancements, another new tech emerges in 1921 when Pittsburgh's KDKA became the very first radio station to broadcast a ball game. That radio station is still in service today. And the advent of radio, it brought the game of baseball to more Americans than ever. And it added to the game's popularity in a decade that saw the Pirates advance to the World Series twice in 3 seasons. They would beat the Washington Senators for the chip in 1925, and they lost in the 1927 Murderers Row, the New York Yankees, led by superstars Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig. The Pirates were a proven winner, but they were not the only game in town. The city of Pittsburgh was a highly evolved city of diversity and was a proud trendsetter well before its time. In 1900, a group of black ball players formed a team and called themselves the Germantown Blue Ribbons. They would play against all comers, black or white, against the top amateur teams for the next decade. Well, at the turn of the decade, the manager retired, but the players wanted to keep going. They rebranded the team to the Murdoch Grays in 1910, and in 1912, they changed their name once again to the Homestead Grays. 1912 not only marked the first time that a team would adopt the iconic Homestead Grays moniker, but it was also the year the team went pro. The Grays operated independently for the next 17 years until they joined the Negro American League in 1929. And that only lasted for 1 year. And then the Grays returned to their independent status until 1932. Led by former outfielder turned owner Composey. They plowed through all their challengers, successfully barnstorming against black and white teams alike. By the early 1920s, Posey was supplementing its strong core of local players with the best black talent money could buy. Players like Smokey Joe Williams, Oscar Charleston, Judy Johnson, Cool Papa Bell. And in 1930, he found his greatest star on the Pittsburgh Sandlots, Mr. Josh Gibson. And around this time, he would square up with crosstown rivals for the first time in the Pittsburgh Crawfords and owner Gus Greenlee. Now, Greenlee was a smooth operator who ran the North Side Numbers racket in an illegal lottery popular in the back neighborhoods of the den. He takes control of the then Sandlot Crawfords, elevates their profile by assembling one of the greatest Negro League teams ever, winning Negro National League titles in 1935 and 1936. And as an owner with deep pockets, he uses a thick wallet to entice Negro League stars to join his club. And he even builds his team their own park, a luxury not experienced by most Negro League teams of the day. I mean, you basically had them and the Wichita team, right? Greenlee's arrival on the scene marked the beginning of the reign of black racketeers over the Negro Leagues. With so few avenues of opportunity available to them, especially with the Great Depression in the backdrop, many entrepreneurial men and women turned to gambling and other activities to put food on the table. And many of these new wave Negro League owners like Greenlee, they put their profits back in the neighborhood, they invested in small business, supported charities and church, and they helped folks through the lean times with never to be repaid loans. The average Negro League owner considered baseball to not only be a revenue stream, but a way to enhance their larger than life profile and the profile of their neighborhoods. Now, to counter Greenlee and batten the Grays' bankroll, Posey recruits a financial partner in Sonny Man Jackson. And in the end, Posey and Jackson outspend and outlast Greenlee, who folds the Crawfords during the summer of 1937 after losing 9 players to the Dominican Republic. And we've talked about that in the Satchel page and Josh Gibson bio. And once again, the Grays rule black baseball in the Burghs. When the Buccos are on the road, the Grays use Forbes Field as their home stadium, and Homestead wins 9 National League, Negro League champions, a streak of excellence unequaled by any other American sport franchise in any sport. And the team is like this enormous sense of pride for the Pittsburgh black community. When Jackie Robinson broke the color line in 1947, the Grays and the Negro Leagues gradually fade from the scene. And while the Grays and Crawfords were capturing imaginations and titles, the Buccos, on the other hand, they're experiencing some tough times. But even without world championships, there were some bright spots. Ralph Kiner would set a record for 7 consecutive home run titles in the late 40s. Harvey Haddish, we've talked about this. He pitches a 12-inning perfect game no-hitter before losing the bid in the game against the Braves 1-0 in the 13th inning. And the Buccos upset the Yankees in the 1960 World Series when second baseman Bill Mazeroski achieves every baseball fan's dream with a walk-off title-clinching dong in Game 7. And here we are, folks, racing through that last traversable wormhole straight into Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, July 16th, 1970, for the grand opening of Three Rivers Stadium. Now, Three Rivers Stadium wasn't the most picturesque coliseum to grace the American sports landscape. She's probably the most perfectly named, though. The Allegheny County seat of Pittsburgh, it lies partly in the hilly region known as the Golden Triangle, and is the location of the city's business district. And one look at the map, and it's obvious why the stadium was named Three Rivers. Flowing diagonally to the northeast of the city to the southwest is the Allegheny River, while gracefully meandering from the southeast to the northwest is the Monongahela River. And at the confluence of those two waterways, the point of the triangle is the mighty Ohio River. And it is here where the Three Rivers converge across the Allegheny from the Golden Triangle, washing ashore to the riverbank known as the North Shore. And it is here where Pittsburgh baseball fans gathered for 31 years to watch their beloved Buccos. Now, Three Rivers wasn't the first ballpark to occupy the shoreline. In fact, it was merely the latest structure in a line of stadiums which had once stood on the very same site. In 1882, the Alleghenies began play on the North Shore at Exposition Park, and what would become the first incarnation of a stadium known by that name, but this one would only be used for one season. By opening day 1883, flooding along the shoreline forced a hasty construction of a second version of Exposition Park. And this is pretty much the same locale where Three Rivers stood, but it was on higher ground. Now, the ball club plays there for the 1883 season and for the next 6 seasons. They call nearby Recreation Park their home ballpark. But it was only a matter of time before the Pirates once again occupy Exposition Park. Opening day, April 22nd, 1891. The Buccos lose the season opener 7-6 to the Chicago Colts at the third and final version of Exposition Park. And it will remain the team's home for the next 18 seasons. And it was actually the National League Park in the first World Series in 1903. Now, that span of time will be dwarfed by the club's stay at their next ballpark, Forbes Field in Oakland. To get there, the team left the North Shore and moved across the river to the heart of the Golden Triangle. Once the Pirates moved into the new state-of-the-art concrete and steel Forbes Field in June of 1909, they remained in the House of Thrills for the next 61 years and won 3 world championships. By the 1950s, however, the Forbes Field infrastructure is beginning to crumble. The ballpark is beginning to show her age, and so the search is on for a new facility that would usher the Pirates and the city of Pittsburgh into the modern era. And again, I have a whole chapter in the collection about Forbes Field. Please feel free to check it out if you haven't heard it or you needed a refresher on that. So, while the Pirates are playing on the side of town known as Oakland, the riverfront that was the foundation for the 3 versions of Exposition Park had become like this sprawling industrial area. And by the early 1950s, it's in dire need of an architectural makeover. And with Forbes Field aging herself out of relevance, the city determined that they needed a ballpark that could not only house the Pirates, but also the city's NFL Pittsburgh Steelers football team. Planning for a multi-purpose crib was in the works as early as 1948, but it wasn't until the 1950s that a substantial effort to address the stadium issues was seriously broached. It was then that city officials decided to revitalize the North Shore in anticipation of baseball returning to the riverfront site where it all began. The site where the three rivers meet. The site for what was originally going to be called Pittsburgh Stadium was chosen in 1958, and the project completion time was estimated for some time in the early 1960s. Once built, the stadium was to be a crown jewel and a complex crown that would include hotels, restaurants, and other local businesses along the waterfront. In the original concept, the ballpark was to be round with an open end facing south towards the city skyline. And in one of the plans I came across, the stadium was actually designed to hover over the Monongahela River. Like actually over the water. You gotta check it out. In those plans, a massive span would replace the existing Smithfield Street Bridge, and the ballpark would be constructed atop that span, with 2 parking lots below it, and plenty of room for boats to pass beneath the stadium. However, the prohibitive cost of the proposed project, it scared city officials off of their ambitions. And seriously, if you ever get a chance, Google the plans for Three Rivers Stadium built over the river and check this thing out. It's pretty remarkable. And I can hear the gears working in some of your heads right now. You're thinking, well, damn, Snake, if the new crib was in the works in 1948, why did it take till 1970 to complete it? Well, the project was seemingly snake-bitten from the rip. With the ballpark's location determined, it took another 5 years before work got underway, clearing the land for its eventual construction. The cleanup starts in 1963. However, political squabbles and labor disputes further delayed the project. One key circumstance eventually served as the catalyst to begin the crib's construction. In 1958, work had begun on the Fort Dickens Bridge, which would span the Allegheny River, connecting downtown with the North Shore. The main span of the bridge was completed in 1963, yet due to bureaucratic red tape and disagreements among the politicians, overall completion and languished for several more years as the project was derisively called the Bridge to Nowhere. In 1968, the final pieces of the bridge were finally put into place. Accordingly, on April 25th, 1968, ground was broken on the long-awaited for Pittsburgh Stadium. And after a decade-long wait, construction of the Pirates and Steelers' new home had finally begun. And if all goes to plan, construction was scheduled to take 2 years and would be ready to open the season for the start of the 1970 season. Well, predictably, everything did not go as planned. On opening day, April 7, 1970, the Buccos opened their season with a 5-3 loss to the New York Mets at Forbes Field. Soon thereafter, a revised completion date of May 29th was leaked to the fan base, but that too proved inaccurate as the lights had yet to be mounted on the stadium. Meanwhile, on June 28th, the Pirates host the Cubs for a doubleheader at Burgh Field before embarking on a 14-game road trip. Hopes were high throughout the Burgh that the Pirates' next homestand would take place in their shiny new crib, which thankfully it does. But now, well, what do we name the thing? And while it took 2 years to build the structure, it took nearly as long to reach a concession on the new name. After much deliberation, the agreed-upon name was uniquely descriptive, Three Rivers Stadium, which was apropos of the times as it was of its location. And the 60s and 70s became the era of the multipurpose stadium. In addition to Pittsburgh's quest to house an MLB and NFL team, similar parks began to sprout up in Washington, D.C., Queens, New York, Houston, Atlanta, St. Louis, Cincinnati, with Philadelphia forthcoming at the closing shop at Shives Park. Architecturally, there's very little to distinguish any of these stadiums from each other. They all carried similar characteristics. They were round, multi-tiered, symmetrical structures designed with the intent of fielding two entirely different sports with entirely different field dimensions. So, by design, such requirements left little room for creativity or imagination. They lacked many of the amenities we find today at Major League parks. And sitting almost exactly in the footprint of Exposition Park, Three Rivers Stadium never quite fulfilled the ambitious plans that were imagined for the North Shore back in 1958. The adjoining hotels, restaurants, and shops, they were never built. Nor was the open end of the ballpark, which promised a magnificent view of the Pittsburgh skyline. Instead, cost constraints dictated that the city got what it paid for. At a cost of $55 million, which has the spending power of around $450 million today in the 2024 economy, Osborne Engineering, the same people that did, the Polo Grounds, Jacobs Field, they provided a functional, multi-purpose stadium that could seat close to 48,000 fans for baseball, 59,000 for football. The circular bowl had 5 tiers of red and yellow seats in the enclosed stadium. The main scoreboard was behind the outfield bench in center field, which was replaced in 1984 with a brand new $5 million scoreboard, which was placed below the stadium's rim in center field. It was an antiseptic environment with the horrible baseball sidelines, far removed from the coziness of Ford Field, and right down to the tartan turf before they replaced that with AstroTurf in 1983. Now, it wasn't totally devoid of charm and elegance. High atop the stadium sat the Alleghenies Club that accommodated 300 people with a bird's eye view of the playing field and 400 people in the main dining area. As a nod to the Pirates' link to the past and Forbes Field, displayed in the restaurant was an 8 by 12 foot section of the old ball yard left field brick wall that Bill Mazeroski's home run clout went over. It had 12 Romanesque window frames from the former iconic home, the Buccos. Additionally, the 18-foot, 1,800-pound statue of Hannes Wagner that stood behind the left field wall of Forbes Field was moved to Three Rivers Stadium, and the statue would be joined in 1994 with another one honoring the great Roberto Clemente. On the field, the Buccos called their crib on the North Shore home for 31 years. The Pirates won 2 World Series in 1971 and 1979 over the Baltimore Orioles, and the fans of the club witnessed several historical accomplishments by some of baseball's greatest players. July 16th, 1970, the first game in the new crib for the battling Buccos was played before the largest crowd to ever watch a game in the Burgh at that time. 48,846 fans were in hand to watch their Pirates fall to the Big Red Machine Cincinnati Reds. A full moon illuminated the stadium, and Richie Hebner got the first hit in the Park's history. He would go on to score the first run on an Al Oliver RBI double to take the lead. Pirates pitcher Doc Ellis, he protected the 1-0 lead until the top of the 5th when Tony Perez hammered a 2-run shot. His 30th of the year to put the Redlegs in front 2-1. Pirates slugger Willie Stargell tied the game up at the bottom of the 6th with a solo shot. But in the top of the 9th, Lee May hits a clutch RBI single, driving in Perez, and the Reds would nail the door shut in the bottom of the 9th for the 3-2 victory. The stadium would be in the spotlight on September 1st, 1971, as the 11,278 fans watched the Pirates field the first all-black lineup in the history of Major League Baseball. And they celebrate with a 10-7 victory over the Philadelphia Phillies. A little more than a month later, the Buccos again made history by beating the Orioles for the chip. 6 of the 8 position players in MLB's first all-black lineup also started the series-clinching game in Baltimore. On September 20th, 1907, Pirates rookie pitcher Nick Maddox tossed what was Pittsburgh's only no-hitter in franchise history when he beat the Brooklyn Superboss 2-1. Now get this. During the club's 61-year history at Forbes Field, no pitcher, home or away, ever threw a no-no there. On August 14, 1971, Bob Gibson throws a gem versus the Bucks. No-no. October 13, 1971, Three Rivers Stadium becomes the site of the first World Series night game as the Pirates beat the O's 4-3 in Game 3 of the Fall Classic. On September 30th, 1972, Roberto Clemente hit a double for career hit number 3,000, becoming just the 11th man to achieve that benchmark. August 6, 1976, 22-year-old John Candelaria, the Candyman, becomes the first Pirates pitcher to toss a no-no in Three Rivers, and the first Bucco to throw a no-hitter since Doc Ellis at San Diego in 1970 in the infamous LSD no-no. By the 2000 season, the Pirates were in disarray and disrepair, as was the Three Rivers Stadium. The combination of shitty teams and a dilapidating ballpark was keeping the fans away in droves. Eventually, as both the Steelers and Pirates sought ways to generate revenue in the dying stadium, it was determined that separate stadiums would be built on each side of Three Rivers Stadium, and the new facilities would be named Heinz Field for the Steelers, and PNC Park for the Buccos. October 1st, 2000, the Pirates played their final game at Three Rivers Stadium. A 10-9 loss to the last place Cubs before a Three Rivers baseball attendance record of 55,351. John Wayner, a Pittsburgh native who grew up rooting for the Bucks inside of Three Rivers Stadium, had a little magic in his bat. He hits his fourth and last home run of his major league career for the final home run inside of Three Rivers Stadium, earning a standing ovation from the fans. Okay, give you some dimensions here from Three Rivers Stadium. The left field and right field foul poles, they stood 335 feet from the home plate, or 102 meters. The left center field and right center field power alleys were 375 feet, or 114 meters, and center field was 400 feet, 122 meters from the dish. And if you're in the Pittsburgh area, set your drones loose and hook up your coordinates for 40 degrees, 26 feet, 48 inches north, by 80 degrees, 0 feet, 46 inches west. And let that bad boy hover over the ghost of Three Rivers Stadium and the three versions of Exposition Park that saw the Pirates rise to prominence before the Forbes Field era beginning in 1909. Okay, so I tell you what, Priest, let's get you all loaded back on our BKP time travel show. And I'm going to let Gunner take us to the glorious PNC Park, the present day home of the Pittsburgh Pirates. So, as Gunner gets us to 2024 PNC Park, I'm going to step out right quick, hook my boy up with treats for a great first segment, hydrate, rip a few tubes, get my head ready for Act 3 in this in-depth story about the history of baseball in Pittsburgh. You're listening to Backwards K-Pod, the Let's Talk Baseball Podcast Network, where we collect ball players and their stories. BRB, Seamans. See you on the dark side of the moon.
Fans will never forget the sight of Jackie Robinson carrying to the plate Johnny Bench, who was all over the field on defense, trying to catch everything in sight.
Tyson has got it. The next pitch ball right past the flagpole.
There's a new home run champion of all time, and it's Henry Aaron. Leaps high in the air, and he's got it! Oh, he got it just like the kid! Ricky's got it! Pitches high, he stole it!
Everybody standing. A double for Rebecca.
David Jeter with one of the most unbelievable plays you will ever see by a shortstop.
Keeps going right at him despite the 0-2 count.
Fly ball to left field. Michael McHenry, the fourth! Oh, baby! Your Buccos lead it! Unbelievable! Wow! His first in the big leagues! They're going to bring the house down!
Howdy, y'all. This is Big Tex Gage Gein, executive producer of Backwards K Pod. In Texas, we do everything big. After football and golf, there's probably nothing I love more than going fishing and enjoying a good crawfish boil. The only thing I dislike about going fishing is the lingering odor it can leave on your hands afterwards. Well, the Fish and Hand Cleaner is an all-natural liquid soap perfect for overpowering fish and bait odors from your hands. I can't tell you how many times I've eaten steamed crabs, lobster, shrimp, crawfish, and then washed my hands with regular soap, only to touch my eyes half hour later, and my face begins to melt off due to the damn Cajun Old Bay spices. Well, we also have a hand cleaner specifically formulated to use after eating shellfish and other seafoods. Perfect for cleaning spicy, smelly hands after a Texas-sized seafood feast. In these cases, don't settle for anything less than our crawfish hand cleaner, our crab hand cleaner, or the fish and hand cleaner. An ingenious trifecta of natural hand soaps developed and owned by a disabled Navy veteran. He and Jake have a true connection, as they were boot camp shipmates all the way back in 1989. So he is family, folks, and one thing we do here at the Let's Talk Baseball Podcast Network is look out for family. So you can support two grassroots companies by two former shipmate Navy vets. Crushing big bowls of shellfish or fishing on the banks of your favorite river while you listen to BKP. Sounds like a great day. You know, in fact, hey Ma, where are my poles? I'm gone fishing. There's also a buffalo wing hand cleaner in development as we speak. To check all of the incredible products of this great company, you can go to www.crawfishhandcleaner.com or call the home offices at 713-588-0290. That's 713-588-0290 to support the grassroots company that supports your grassroots podcast show. That's crawfishhandcleaner.com or 713-588-0290 to prepare for your summertime shellfish feast or that fishing trip you're planning. crawfishhandcleaner.com.
And the pitch. High drive to right field, and it's fair, it's gone! Oh, it is gone! Clear the deck! Oyekomova! Carlos Santana has won the game! Raise the Jolly Roger! His ninth, a no-doubter! He pauses around third, looks toward the sky! Dances toward the plate! He's still not there yet. Now he goes. Carlos Santana. A home run to win this game over the Brewers.
To the Let's Talk Baseball Podcast Network. And this is Backwards K-Pod, where we collect ball players and their stories. And this week we've been doing a deep dive into the history of baseball in the Steel City, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm giving you the Genesis backstory on how the Pirates came to be. We've covered the rich Negro League tradition of the city in a small town that boasted two of the most consequential Negro League teams in the history of the sport in the Homestead Grays and the Pittsburgh Crawfords. And I've given you the history of 4 out of the 5 baseball stadiums to call the Burgh home. I have the Forbes Field documentary and that banging-ass catalog of shows. And this week I've given you the history of Expositions Park 1, 2, and 3 during the club's early years. And before me and Gunner broke for spots, I dissected the history of Three Rivers Park. Now, despite the heroics of Roberto Clemente and upending the Yankees in the 1961 World Series, thanks to that series clinching home run by Bill Mazeroski, the 1960s was a wash, a lost decade for the Buccos. But while there was no championship clubs after 1960, there was a crazy talent coming through the farm system. Willie Stargell would lead the Pirates to World Series championships in 1971 and 1979, with division titles in between. Upon moving into the 1980s, Stargell was one of the most well-loved, dynamic sluggers of his generation. And he was given the nickname Pops, and the team was his family. But the family began to exhibit serious signs of dysfunction after Stargell's retirement in 1982, culminating in a clubhouse drug scandal that led to the drug trials of 1985, which is another topic I've covered in here. That show is sitting in the archives as well. A federal court in Pittsburgh would implicate some 30 Major League players and the Pittsburgh Parrot mascot, tarnishing not only the Pirates' image, but the optics on Major League Baseball as well. After 1979, the Pirates have a burst of glory in small increments in 1991 behind the play of Barry Bonds and Bobby Bonilla. The Pirates came oh so close, just short, to the rising Braves. Because Pittsburgh remains one of the smallest markets in the majors, the Pirates lack the resources and media revenue to aggressively pursue high-end free agents. But what the team did pursue aggressively was a new ballpark. And in 2001, the Pirates left the crumbling, cavernous dungeon of Three Rivers Stadium for a new home, a smaller, much grander, and graceful crib, PNC Park. And here we are, freaks, pulling up to the magnificent PNC Park, one of my favorite stadiums in the Big. I love coming to this place. And plans to build this structure began in 1991. But the plans were put on hold for 5 years before coming to fruition. Funded in conjunction with Heinz Field and the David L. Lawrence Convention Center, the price tag on PNC Park was $216 million. $216 million in 2001. It has the purchasing power of about $384 million today in the 2024 economy. While Three Rivers Stadium took years to accomplish, PNC Park was completed in 24 months, which is rather quick when it comes to modern-day ballparks. It was built in a classic jewel box retro style, and it was the first stadium to break away from the brick exterior in favor of a limestone facade. It has a riverside concourse, eye-popping steel trusses, an extensive out-of-town scoreboard, and local eateries. There are several tributes to the great one, Roberto Clemente, including a statue of him by the main entrance after you cross the 6th Street Bridge that was renamed in his honor. It also features a 21-foot wall of right field as a nod to his iconic number 21 he wore so proudly. PNC Financial Services purchased the naming rights in 1998 for $30 million for 20 years, and they currently hold the rights through 2031. It is truly one of the best baseball stadiums in the world, with its cozy location tucked along the Alleghenies shoreline, its majestic views of the Still City, timeless design, clear angles from every seat in the house. On September 5th, 1991, Pittsburgh Mayor Sophie Masloff proposes a 44,000-seat stadium for the Buccos on the city's north side. A far cry from Three Rivers Stadium, which was built for functionality rather than architectural brilliance and aesthetics. Also, the new proposed legislation, in theory, would make it easier to get to and from the new site than Three Rivers Stadium, where bogged-down gridlock and traffic congestion before and after games would frustrate the fans. Discussions about a new park had been tossed around, but it was never seriously considered until entrepreneur Kevin McClatchy purchased the team in February of 1996. In fact, before McClatchy took the reins of the team, there had been some scuttlebutt floating around signaling that the Pittsburgh Pirates may have to relocate to survive. In 1996, Masloff's successor, Tom Murphy, created the Force Field Task Force 2. The committee was made up of 29 political and local business leaders, and they studied the challenges of constructing a new park. The final report, which was presented on June 26, 1996, and it evaluated 13 possible locations. The north side was recommended due to its affordable costs, the potential to develop the surrounding area, and the opportunity to incorporate the city skyline into the ballpark's design. The agreed-upon site is just upriver from the site of the Pirates' home field, Exposition Park, from back in the day. And after much political debate, public money was used to fund PNC. Now, originally, a sale tax had been proposed to fund the three projects: PNC, Heinz Field, now Acrisure Stadium, and expansion of the David L. Lawrence Convention Center. The proposal was soundly rejected in a 1997 referendum known as the Regional Renaissance Initiative. So the city comes up with a plan B, which proved to be just as controversial and was labeled as Scam B by opponents. A member of the Allegheny Regional Asset District called the use of taxpayer dollars corporate welfare, while others still complain that the Pirates should kick in more cash than the $40 million they pledged. But the board approves Plan B on July 9th, 1998, and it included $228 million for PNC Park in a package that totaled $809 million. Shortly after receiving the funds necessary to build the ballpark, the Pirates made a deal with city officials that ties the team to the Burgh until at least 2031. And there was sentiment among many Pirates fans to name the park after icon Roberto Clemente. But PNC Bank paid the Bucs about $2 million a year through 2020, and it also maintains a full-service PNC branch at the Yard. In all, PNC Park cost was around $260 million. Shortly after the naming rights were announced to the public, the city of Pittsburgh renamed the 6th Street Bridge near the southeast corner of the ballpark the Roberto Clemente Bridge, as a compromise and a gesture of goodwill to the fans who wanted the park named after Robbie. Kansas City-based HOK, now called Populous, designed the ballpark in an effort was made to salute the classic throwback style in the design of PNC Park in the vein of Fenway Park, Wrigley, Ford Field, and the design of the park's archways and steel trusses and light standards are a reflection of this attempt. It was the first two-deck ballpark built in the United States since Milwaukee County Stadium, which opened in 1953. The yard features a 24-foot by 42-foot Sony Jumbotron, which was accompanied by the first LED video boards in an outdoor MLB stadium. PNC Park is the first stadium to feature an out-of-town scoreboard that details the score, inning, number of outs, and base runners for every game being played on any given day of the season around the league. The out-of-town scoreboard was disabled for the 2022 season and replaced with advertising. After significant protests by the fans, the scoreboard was returned in 2023. Ground was broken for the park on April 7, 1999. After a symbolic ceremony of christening the newly renamed Clemente Bridge. Now, the bridge is closed to vehicular traffic on game days to allow spectators to park in the Golden Triangle and then walk across the bridge to the stadium. PNC Park was built with Kasota limestone, which was shipped to the Burgh from a Minnesota river valley. The raw steel used for the crib is made in the USA and was fabricated in Brownsville, Pennsylvania. The 24-month span of time was faster than any major league ballpark in the modern era, and the Buccos played their first game less than 2 years after breaking ground. The quick construction was due in part to using special computers that relayed building plans to builders 24 hours a day. Also, the 23 union groups tasked with the construction of the crib, they signed a pact that they would not strike during the building process. And one of the coolest things about PNC Park are the impressive statues of Pirates Hall of Famers Hannes Wagner, Roberto Clemente, Willie Stargell, and Bill Mazeroski. And they're sprinkled in various positions around the park. The Wagner and Clemente statues were the ones previously located at Three Rivers Stadium. And I love that Willie Stargell statue. It's just so big. After the venue was imploded, the two statues were removed from their locations, refurbished, and relocated outside of PNC. And I love that Clemente statue. And actually, the base of the statue has a diamond. And there's bases at each part of the diamond. The bases, they hold dirt from three of the fields that the Great One played at. Santurce Field in Carolina, Puerto Rico, Forbes Field, and Three Rivers. On October 1st, 2000, after the final game at Three Rivers Stadium, Stargell threw out a ceremonial last pitch. And his statue was unveiled on April 7, 2001. But Stargell's health was in decline, and he was unable to attend the ceremony, and number 8 would die 2 days later. A statue of Maz was added to the right field entrance at the south end of Mazeroski Way during the 2010 season and marked the 50th anniversary of the Buccos 1960 World Championship. And again, it's another beautiful statue as it's Maz circling the bases, holding on to his batting helmet after hitting his unforgettable 1960 championship winning dong, as the design is based on recreating that event. The first game at PNC was an exhibition contest with the New York Mets on March 31st, 2001. The first official game was between the Reds and the Buccos on April 9th, and the Reds won by the final of 9-2. The first pitch in stadium history was a ball thrown by Pirates pitcher Todd Ritchie to Hall of Fame shortstop Barry Larkin. In the top of the first, Pittsburgh native Reds first baseman Sean Casey ripped the first home run in the Park's history, a 2-run shot. Jason Kendall smacked a single, the first hit at PNC by a Bucco player. The address is 115 Federal Street. The field is asymmetrical, so left field down the line, you're looking at 325 feet from the plate, which is 99 meters. Left center field shoots back to 385 feet or 117 meters. The deepest part of the park is left field by the bullpen, and that is 410 feet or 125 meters. Straightaway center field, you're looking at 399 feet or 122 meters. The right center field power alley is 375 feet or 114 meters. And the right field pole is 320 feet from home plate or 98 meters with a 21-foot high wall in honor of Roberto. The surface is a beautiful Kentucky bluegrass. And if you're ever in Pittsburgh on the north side of town, launch your drones and set course for 40 degrees 26 feet 49 inches north by 80 degrees 0 feet 21 inches west. And once you got your bird up with the right coordinates, do yourself a favor. Let that sumbitch hover and breathe it in, man. Take some pics while you're at it. This is baseball in the Burgh, baby. I want to thank all you freaks for stopping by this week, as I'm going to end it right here. It's been my absolute honor to share a brain with you Seaheads today, as well as the story and the history of baseball in Pittsburgh. Thank you for your support and allow me to do the one thing I love to do in this world. And that is pontificate the scenes with all you freaks. And I promise, nerds, I'll try to be better next week. I will never charge you freaks for the baseball content. I'm just going to keep coming through every week with that free baseball smoke.
You don't want that smoke.
And I'm going to keep it consistent like CC Sabathia, baby. Check me out on YouTube and TikTok, yo, under the Backwards K banner. On X, the show handle is back_K_podcast. Or you can join the fun in my private Facebook group page, the Let's Talk Baseball Podcast Network. As Gunner is racing up the tracks to get you back to your loved ones, patiently awaiting your return at Terrapin Station, I'll now turn my attention to our never say die baseball hydra. I reach under my commode, grab my katana sword, and I chop the head off that beast, only to see 2 more baseball topics appear in his place. Next week, we're going to take an introspective look at Fernando Mania. Fernando Valenzuela and his beautiful star shooting across the baseball universe, taking center stage in the 1980s for the Los Angeles Dodgers. That should be fun. Come on through next week. We'll do it all over again. Parents, if you see your kid sitting on the couch, they got their nose in their bones like a pathetic and bored AF, by all means, take those little monkeys outside and play a game of catch. Thank y'all for coming out. God bless and win the day. And like my dude, Shea Hillenbrand, told me in our one-on-one sparring session in the dojo a few years back, you go to hell, Andy Pettit. Me and Charlie Guns, we throwing up our Gunnar Hendersons, y'all. That's our number 2s. As in, peace. Fernando Mania next week. I love you guys. See ya.